Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of learning Japanese. Today we're going to be covering something really simple, and it's just going to be using the suffix doushi to kind of do this thing. Okay, so the word doushi is actually going to be a word in and of itself. It's a noun that is going to translate to something along the lines of fellow, companion, mutual, comrade, something along those lines. But the thing is, as part of this grammar pattern, what we can do is we can actually attach it right after another noun word as a suffix, because we're all magicians and we know how to do magic. And so say we do this, we attach doushi after another noun. Let's call that noun X. What that's going to do is it's going to express that X or X's, multiple X's, they're going to be grouped together because we added doushi after the noun word X. And so what I mean by grouping them together, basically this is just going to further express that these X's, they do something to, for, or against each other. And so doushi as a suffix is going to be one of those topics where you can't quite translate it literally and it'll be the same thing every single time. It's something that's very contextual. It depends on what word you're using with, what sentence you're using it in. But common translations of doushi are going to include each other, together, between, among, with, and etc. So basically our construction here is going to be, we'll choose a noun word, any noun word basically, then we'll add doushi right after it. Then what usually follows after that is going to be either the particle de, or the particle ga, or the particle no, or even the particle o. Then something X will happen after that to describe what those things are doing together or grouped together or whatever. So yeah, if that construction kind of confuses you, don't let it confuse you, because now we're going to jump into some example sentences to get a clear idea of each of those cases or most of those cases. So for our first example sentence, this is actually going to be not even a full sentence. This is going to be a little phrase to make this easy. It's going to be Otoko doshi no kyoukan. And what this is going to translate to is very quite simply empathy between men. So let's break this down. First up, we just have a noun word, otoko, which means man or men. That's a noun. And so that's actually going to be the noun that we're going to use the suffix doshi with. So what we do is you just plug doshi right after otoko. So otoko doshi is going to basically mean men, but there's this nuance of them being grouped together in something between them or among them or each other. We'll get a better sense of that as we move on with the wording. So next, like I said, there's usually going to be a particle right after that, and this time it's going to be the particle no. And basically this is going to be a noun of a noun modification. Otoko doshi is going to be the first noun, and the second noun is going to be kyoukan, which is going to mean empathy or sympathy. And so here we have what this example basically is just a straight up noun of a noun modification. Otoko doshi is the first noun, and the second noun is kyoukan. So otoko doshi no kyoukan is going to be empathy of men, is what you would say if you weren't considering this little nuance of the doshi suffix. Instead, what we're going to conclude that it translates to is empathy between men. So that between there is the effect of the doshi, because it implies that something's going on between the noun that we use, which is men. So something between men, so empathy between men. And so yeah, hopefully you noted here that if we didn't use the suffix doshi and we just had otoko no kyoukan, this could be empathy of men or a man's empathy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be empathy towards another man. It could just be some guy's empathy towards everything, animals, women, children, anything. But because we used doshi right after otoko, we planted it on there as a suffix, it adds this effect of men to each other or for each other, among each other. So this is going to be the empathy that basically men feel between each other and not necessarily between other entities such as women or animals or aliens or something. Okay, so now let's move on to our next example, which is actually going to be a full-fledged sentence now. So our line is going to read, この大学は全国のmottomo優秀な学生同士の戦場だ. And so what this line here is going to translate to is essentially, this university is a battlefield for the fellow brightest students across the country. Okay, so that's some pretty interesting wording. Let's break down the sentence bit by bit to see what's going on here in Japanese. So first up, we just have the adjective kono, which is going to mean this. It's going to be modifying the noun right after it, which is daigaku, and this is going to translate to basically university or college. So kono daigaku is going to be this college. we have the particle wa, marking as the topic of the sentence. Right after that, we have the word zenkoku, which is gonna mean basically entire country. It's gonna be a noun, and it's gonna be the first noun in a noun of a noun modification, which is gonna start now because we have the particle no right after it. So our second noun is actually gonna be one that's gonna be modified by some other things too. So the first thing we have here is mottomo, and this is gonna translate to basically most. It's gonna be modifying the adjective right after it, which is yuushuu, which is gonna be basically superior or excellent. That's a not adjective that's gonna be modifying our second noun in our noun of a noun modification. So we're gonna have that particle na right after it because that's what we include for not adjectives when they're modifying nouns. And then we finally get to our second noun, which is going to be gakuseidoushi. And so gakusei is of course going to mean student, and the doushi right there is going to be our suffix that means grouping together students. So this will turn into something like fellow students. And so let's look at this noun of a noun modification again from a more wide angle. We have, what is it again? Zenkoku no mottomo yuushuu na gakuseidoushi, which is basically going to mean the most brightest or superior fellow students of the whole country. So basically the brightest students in the whole country, the fellow brightest students in the whole country. But wait, this is actually going to be nested in another noun of a noun modification. So the brightest fellow students in the whole country is now the first noun in this new noun of a noun modification. We have the particle no again to instigate the modification. Then the second noun is going to be senjyou, which is going to basically translate to battlefield. So then this new noun of a noun modification is just basically going to be a battlefield of the brightest fellow students across the country. Then we link that to the first part of the sentence, which was just simplyこの大学は, which is this university is, and so we can just pretty easily plug that in. This university is a battlefield of the most brightest students across the country. And so yeah, that's the whole sentence right there. And hopefully you can see here how the doushi at the end of, or attached to gakusei, which is students, turns into basically fellow students. So this implies that the battlefield is between the students. They're basically the ones fighting each other on this battlefield because they're the fellow brightest students. And yeah. Alright, so we're going to move on to our last example sentence, which is surprise, one that we've actually covered before in our anime line of the day segment. So this line, this example sentence is taken from an episode of anime. It is taken from the 6th episode of the anime New Game. And of course this example sentence is from a dialogue, so it's actually going to have two lines. We're not going to break down the first line because this is just going to be a contextual line between the two speakers. So the first line is going to read この間初のお給料が入ったんだ。貸しといてあげようか. And this is going to translate to basically, I just happened to get my first paycheck the other day. Shall I lend you some money? So that's going to be the first line. Again, we're not going to break it down. This is said by one character, and now the next line that we are going to break down is said by the other character who that first character is talking to. So in reply to her asking, shall I lend you some money? She says this. いい友達同士の貸し借りは友情の破綻の原因なんだよ. And so what this response is going to translate to is basically, no. Borrowing and lending between friends is what leads to ruined friendships. So let's break down this sentence bit by bit. First off, we just have this little utterance of いい, and that's just gonna basically mean, it's just gonna be the いい adjective いい, which means good or okay, and she's basically saying I'm okay or I'm good, so that more naturally turns into no, ironically. Moving on, we have the employment of our grammar pattern here. So first up, the noun that we're gonna be using is tomodachi, which is just friends. So tomodachi doushi, which is going to mean between friends, basically. Once again, we have two noun of a noun modifications in this example sentence. So let's go over the first one. The first noun in this first noun of a noun modification is tomodachi doushi. The second one is kashikari, which means borrowing and lending. So tomodachi doushi no kashikari is going to be the lending and borrowing of friends, or just lending and borrowing between friends, basically. And so that first noun of a noun modification there, tomodachi doushi no kashikari, is actually going to be the topic now. We're going to mark that with the particle wa. Second noun of a noun modification is actually going to be a double one. So there's one rooted inside of it. We have our first noun, which is just going to be yuushuu, which is going to mean friendship. And our second noun in this first noun of a noun modification is going to be hatan, which means downfall or ruin. And so then yuushuu no hatan is going to mean the ruin of a friendship or the downfall of a friendship. And now let's move on to the next noun of a noun modification that's linked with this one. And now we move on to our second noun of a noun modification, which is hatan no genin. So the word hatan is basically going to mean downfall or ruin. Then genin is going to mean basically source or root. So hatan no genin is going to be basically the source of downfall. And so there we reach the end of the sentence, and we just end it with a nandayo. The nan is just kind of emphasizing. Then the da is the copula da to end the sentence, of course. Then the sentence ending particle yo is there to be kind of either an emphasis or an explanatory note. So she's explaining, no, I don't want it because lending and borrowing money between friends is the source of downfall of a friendship. So once again, that line in Japanese is Tomodachi doshi no kashikari wa yuushuu no hatan no genin nandayo. And that's gonna be what I just said. And so yeah, the thing to note there, of course, is that the suffix doshi here is adding this nuance of a more stressed between friends and not so much just friends simply. Alright, so that third example sentence is actually going to be our last one. I think 3 is enough for this topic because it is a pretty simple grammar pattern. It's just a suffix added right after nouns to add this nuance of these nouns doing something between each other, among each other, to each other, for each other, etc. So that has been our coverage of doushi as the suffix that does exactly what I just said. So yeah, it's the end of this lesson. Stay tuned for the next one.